Ever wondered why you keep attracting the wrong people? What if I told you it's not a coincidence? There's a reason survivors of abuse fall into the same toxic relationships over and over, and unless you see it, you'll never break free. If your relationships always seem to end in pain, it's not bad luck. Your past might be controlling you, without you even realizing it. Here's something nobody talks about. Survivors don't just attract toxic people, they actually feel more comfortable around them. But why does this happen? Why do survivors of abuse keep attracting toxic people even when they try to avoid them? Most people think they can just choose better, but what if I told you your brain is wired to make the same mistake over and over? And the worst part, it's not even your fault. But how does this happen? It all starts with one thing. Your brain was trained to accept dysfunction. And the scariest part, it feels normal. If you grew up around unpredictable emotions, gaslighting, or conditional love, your nervous system got used to chaos. And when you're used to chaos, healthy love can feel boring, fake, even uncomfortable. That's why people with painful childhoods often mistake red flags for passion. If you grew up around chaos, emotional neglect, or unpredictable love, there's something you need to know. Your brain didn't just witness dysfunction, it memorized it. And now, it's secretly guiding your attraction without you realizing it. This is why so many people leave toxic relationships, only to end up in another. Fights, silent treatments, emotional roller coasters. That becomes your baseline for normal. So when you finally meet someone who is stable, kind, and emotionally available, your brain doesn't recognize it as love. Meanwhile, a toxic person comes along, and suddenly, you feel a rush of excitement, passion, familiarity. But in reality, that's just your trauma talking. This is the part that messes with your head. If you've ever dated someone who treated you really well, but you just weren't feeling it, this is why. Your brain is wired to crave intensity, not stability. And unless you retain your nervous system, you'll keep walking away from healthy love and running straight into the arms of another emotional disaster. But here's the good news. You can break the cycle, and I'll show you how. Escaping a toxic relationship doesn't mean you've escaped the pattern. Most survivors don't realize this, but they're unconsciously setting themselves up for the next toxic partner. And the scariest part, it's not even their fault. Have you ever asked yourself, why do I keep ending up with the same type of toxic person? It's not a coincidence. It's something called repetition compulsion. Your brain is wired to repeat the past, even if that past was painful. So now, you feel drawn to familiar dysfunction, even when you try to avoid it. That's why survivors leave one toxic relationship, only to walk into another. But it gets worse, because trauma survivors don't just attract toxic people. They feel emotionally addicted to them. This is called trauma bonding, and it's one of the biggest reasons people stay in abusive relationships. Think about it. Why do so many people go back to toxic partners, even when they know they're bad for them? It's not because they're weak. It's because their brain has been conditioned to crave the cycle of pain and relief. Imagine a slot machine. Every time you pull the lever, you don't know if you'll win or lose. That unpredictability keeps you hooked. Toxic relationships work the same way. Sometimes they love you, sometimes they hurt you, and your brain keeps chasing the win. But here's the scary part. The longer you stay, the harder it is to leave. Your brain forms stronger attachments to the abuser, making it feel impossible to break free. Here's how it works. The toxic partner hurts you, then suddenly shows affection. Your brain releases dopamine, tricking you into thinking this time will be different. But it never is. And every time they pull away, you crave their approval even more. The human brain is designed to seek comfort in what's familiar. But here's the problem. If your past was filled with chaos, manipulation, and rejection, then your comfort zone is toxic. That's why real love can feel boring. A healthy partner might seem too nice or not exciting enough because there's no emotional roller coaster. Meanwhile, the toxic person feels magnetic, addictive, like passion. But in reality, that's just your trauma talking. But let's take it one step deeper. What if you're actively sabotaging healthy love without even realizing it? Many trauma survivors push away people who treat them well. They'll say things like, "It's too easy. I don't feel the spark. There's no chemistry." But what if that's just your trauma talking? Because here's what's really happening. Deep down, you fear healthy love. Real love feels stable, predictable, and safe. But if you've only known toxic love, that safety feels boring, even suffocating. So you pull away, you sabotage, you chase the next high. This is why so many survivors of abuse fall into the same cycle. They're running from the very thing that could heal them. Your brain is wired to associate love with intensity, not safety. So when someone treats you with consistency and respect, your brain doesn't register it as love. It feels strange, boring, even fake. But that discomfort, that's actually a sign you're breaking free. Another survival mechanism trauma creates: emotional numbing. When you've been hurt enough, your brain shuts down emotions to protect you. At first, it seems helpful, but over time, it blocks you from experiencing real connection. You might struggle to trust, to express feelings, or to fully open up to someone, even when they're safe. And if this cycle continues, it can leave you feeling completely alone. So, how do you escape this cycle? Sometimes the damage from trauma runs deep, but no amount of willpower alone can fully undo it. This is where therapy and professional help come in. Therapies like cognitive behavioral therapy help survivors unlearn toxic patterns. Meanwhile, EMDR therapy is proven to rewire trauma responses on a neurological level. Here's what's important. You don't have to figure this out alone. Make sure to subscribe, because I'll be breaking down even more ways to heal and break free from toxic cycles.